What's up, guys? Welcome to day 2. So, let's get this show on the road, shall we? Welcome to day 2, my friends. Let's do this thing, yeah? How is everybody today? Hopefully everybody's doing good. Okay, so we have the concept of connecting at the graveside, or other ways we can work with the dead and the connection to spirits and pulling them from one plane to another. So there's a couple of terms I want to go over real quick. First one is going to be the use of an array. An array is not just a circle drawn on a piece of paper. It's something that you include alchemical arrangements for. It's something that you make into a physical construct of the thing that you're trying to do. So in this case, when we're working with grave dirt, when we're working with dirt from a cemetery or dirt from where a person has died or persons have died, if you're using things from a battlefield, you want to be able to construct the full arrangement. So it's got a piece of animal skin on the back of it, or it's got a piece of metal on the back of it to connect it to the earth or whatever it is you're working on. It's got herbs, oils, it's got a little bit of your blood mixed into it so that way you connect to it. And when you place it on the ground or when you place it in your ritual circle, you've prepared your area so that it functions as the pathway for you. So it's not about just the sacred geometry or just the magic circle. It's you've put yourself into it as well as what you've added to the design or to the ink. In the case of this one, to demonstrate, I made it specifically for this project. It's mixed with dirt from the Garden of Innocence, which is where they put the children who have died in childbirth, and where they have it's a really beautiful monument here in San Diego. It's a stone slab with a little space under it. It's exactly like one of the old Fey portals to the other world. So I was doing an offering to them, and I collected some of the dirt so that they are allowed to cross from this world back over, so that those that have been lost before their time, those that are pure of any life experience, those that don't have the burden of life that adults do. It's a different type of energy than working with, say, the dirt from the pauper's grave or dirt from one of the mining towns here in California, where there were more people that were murdered than there were people living. That was back during the Gold Rush era. Other ingredients were the spell I used to protect people on a journey, so that as you connect to them, you are protected and they are protected. So it creates a space of controlled arrangements. That way, when you are doing psychic immersion and you're projecting yourself into a crystal, or you're pulling them into an intermediary such as an incense or through another person, as they go through and they do those works with the dowsing rods or with a pendulum, so that you can question the dead and you can get insight into things around the fuzzy edges of what is walking with somebody, what isn't working with something, you can ask these questions and you can get a response. I also included a wishing powder in there, which helps facilitate the desires between this world and the other world, specifically with a focus on the Fae. The Luenanchi, the guardians of the blackthorn and the hawthorn, so it's the blackthorn meeting the whitethorn, so it creates the boundary between the two worlds. And then dragon's blood ink in order to bind it to make the base formula for everything. Also, there's blood mixed into the ink as well. So with that being said, there's other steps involved in preparation for the array. So in this case, I used the 10 by 10 square. So if you need to pause it, this right here, all the numbers add up to 1, 0. So 10 for the number of the earth, or binary 1 and 0. So it's the all and nothing. So it starts from the beginning and goes to the end. For Samhain that just passed, I mixed an incense of datura, marigold, poppy seed, spikenard, plantain, mugwort, Jupiter, and lightning wood that came from a cemetery. It was oak was the base. So that'll be the incense that I use to pull spirits in. Now, on the back side of the array, there is the 10 by 10 square that I did with papyrus. And on top of that, I mixed the ink of the earth. The ink of the earth is an animated blend of ingredients in black India ink that I mixed with rainwater. And into the ink of the earth, it is the spirit of the earth. It is a piece of obsidian in there. It is a piece of crystal in there. It is an animal component of one of the sacred beasts that represents the earth. To get into the different types of compounding, like when you add portions of spells together, when you're examining them at a time, looking at my notes so I don't forget, when portions of spells are examined at a time, when you separate out all the different layers of like the spirit anchoring blend, right, or the journey blend and what they can do, they give a greater meaning when you compound the associations, so that as you're creating density of what you understand that form to be, right? As you understand the bind rune that you create, like by creating this particular array, we have the symbol for the tree in the center, you know, and when you're ready to use it, or when you've got it where you're comfortable, then you add your blood to it, and so you've created a connection to you and to the thing that you're working with. Now, one of the things to keep in mind is that yes, these things are active and they will cause disruption in your environment if you don't have a stable place to keep them. That's why I keep a separate book that's got all of my arrays and such in there, like they're each divided out. But you don't necessarily have to go for this method. This is for if you're doing at-home rituals, if you're doing things that are for remote use. Now, when you're creating and setting up the tunnels through which these energies move, so you're basically creating a wormhole from where you are to where the spirit plane is, you need to understand that there's flow patterns. There are movements of clockwise and counterclockwise energy at play inside your work. And so when you're doing these things, you need to be able to anchor it in to who the individual was that you're talking about. So what you can do is you can go through and you can find the date of birth, the date of death, the day of the week that represents, and the astrological time. Now, on the day of the birth and the day of death, those two are very important things to know, because those are the planetary to and from. They lived on this world from that gate of the planet to this gate of the planet. So that's their to and from points. So you take their name and you, on those planetary squares, you break it down into the numerical equivalent. So you use the Pythagorean numerology, 1 through 9. So you're connecting those energies and you can figure out the path, the plot points for it. So you start at the first one, the first letter of their name, and you eliminate doubles. If that way you just create the planetary energy flow, because you're not working specifically to them yet. So by connecting the planetary flow to create not only the gate sigil, you put that in one location. The other one is their death date. And then there's the where you're at when you are doing the summoning. So you plot the date for each. So to, from, and current. So that way you have the connection to that individual, those energies. So you're directly creating a path to that one person's spirit, to that one type of spirit. You can use the spirit anchoring formula in lamps. So I use terracotta lamps because the terracotta remembers, stone remembers. So for that, they fit in each of the different circles. I'll put a little bit of the grave dirt underneath those. I'll put the lamp on top of the grave dirt so that it doesn't leak through and burn the array. Careful of setting your stuff on fire, folks. They do catch pretty quick. The ingredients for the spirit anchoring blend, that's the stuff of a little bit of higher conversation. But when you're anchoring spirits, let's see if I can get you that recipe here. I will have to get back to you because I didn't have that one prepared in front of me. But that'll be a different video to make those specific blends and the journey blend and those sorts of things. So, oh wait, here we go. There we go. So, we are doing the spirit anchoring blend. So, inside of that, also the order of which you include the herbs is important because they stack intent on top of each other. So I follow the law of narration. So where it comes from, why it's coming from there, in order to pull spirits, right? You're basically creating a beacon which allows you to draw in those energies of the specific form or the non-specific forms. So when you do these things, you know what you're doing. You know where it's coming from. And you don't have to worry about wandering spirits or wandering influences and things like that, because there's a lot of fear that people have when they're talking about necromancy, when they're talking about working with the dead and things like that, because they don't know where the spirits are coming from. But if you're working with a specific person by their graveside, or if you're working with a specific individual, then you know exactly who you're dealing with. And if you're pulling nasty energies out of the living, then you can also tag it to somebody's house. So instead of having the location of who that individual was when they died, you can actually do it where there's all of the men that live in the location, all of the women that live in the location, and all of the children that live in the location. So that you can pull out all of the energy in that location and divide it out so that you can perform your purification ceremony. So you can use it as an exorcism tool. And those are really important because when I do remote exorcisms for people all over the country, they're like, I need this entity, I need this energy removed. So being able to use one of these allows me to divide out their space and to remotely extract it. And in the spirit anchoring formula that I use, it's lavender, European mandrake root, dragon's blood, High John the Conqueror root, cinquefoil, mugwort, yarrow, vervain, wormwood, devil's shoestring, and Solomon's seal. And in that order. It is really important that you do follow that order. And the road opener blend that I use is also really, really important. Because what that does is it lets you connect directly to the other side, or whatever it is that you need to have happen. Really fun fact about when you mix up this road opener stuff, that just by smelling it, it'll change the whole course of your day. So in that one, it's mistletoe, the Palo Abre Camino, Palo Namo, which ensures success, patchouli to connect to the earth, frankincense, nettles, tonka beans, cassia bark, and grains of paradise. So grind all those up, mix them down. There are some animal components that you can add if you wanted to. I don't recommend that for if you're mixing just the herbal aspect. Like there's stages to making the road opener blend more potent, but they're not necessary for this particular work. So you can just focus on those ingredients and those applications of it. So as you do that, then you have that connection to it. So with the fairy wishing powder that I used, it's mistletoe, blessed thistle, white oak, hawthorn, dittany of Crete, dandelion, and blackthorn. Like I said, it connects the two together. And the thing about blackthorn is it's the blasting rod, right? So you want to be kind of careful in your application of this stuff because it's not something that you're blowing spirits apart. You're creating the space into which you've got the energy flow, and you're spreading it outward to create the ripple. So that's where your open gate is. That's where your open doors are. And so by using those and creating this array construct, you have established a gateway through which spirits can cross. And so when you're in the cemeteries and you're doing the exorcism, or you're doing remote extractions, or you're doing any type of interaction with spirit work, you can use something like these as the foundation through which that energy comes. So that way then you can go back and you can go over with your dowsing rods, and you can go through and you can mix and match these things. So necromancy takes on a different type of action. It's not just a passive, I'm going to sit with the dead. It's, I am intentionally calling them into my space. I have created a blood gate through which they can flow, so that way you and the gate are linked, so that you and the dead are linked. So in that place of union, then you have the energy come through. And then so you set your space with a protective barrier around what you're doing. It doesn't have to, once you have an array built, the energy of the space, as it compresses, focuses in on just that area. So you can put your crystals around it, you can put your incense around it, you can put your lamps on it, you can put all sorts of stuff and build out around that gate, because that is the path to the other world. That is the means by which spirits cross from here into there during your ceremony. And it's nice when you use the alchemical jars, the planetary ones, the elemental ones. Like, I've included the recipes and the ingredients already in the group, so that way you get a chance to apply it for yourself. So you set the planetary anchors for those points of life, for those points of death, and you don't even have to make the sigils. You just place the jars on each of those, so that as they sit there, those are the gate power points. Those are the keys of power, so to speak. So as you've got the alchemical anchors of the planets, you can pull through time, you can pull through space, and then you pull the intangible energies out separate from the physical energy. So when you're working with the gatework, so like these for Mars, when you've got these inside of your spell jar, it's got the crystal powder, it's got the elemental powder, it's got the herbs, it's got the fulgurite, it's got all of the stuff that you need, and it's made pure enough so that way when energy flows through it, you can separate out the spaces where energy is not. So as you do it, so here you get an opportunity to see, like, you just place these things and you can create those gateways. You can begin to build your arrays in a way that allow you to connect with the dead, or connect with the spirits, or connect with the other world in a way that most types of magic don't allow for. So that as you work with these types of passing rituals, as you work with these types of crossing mechanisms, you have the means by which you can operate, and you can operate as free as you need to when it comes to interaction with this stuff. Now, a few words of warning when you're dealing with the dead, and when you're dealing with the graveyards, and when you're dealing with the land that has connected and holds the souls of life. This stuff isn't a game. This stuff isn't for posturing of, oh, I'm a bigger badass. This stuff is for reverence. This stuff is for solving situations which otherwise can't be solved by other methods. So using something like this to form other spells is possible. So this would be the engine on which other spell totems are animated. So if you're calling on a spirit, or you're using the land that contains life or contains death and is a carrier of the spirit, you're able to take those energies and bring them into a new type of life when you build out your spell totem. And a spell totem in this case would be something that contains animal life, something that contains plant life, something that contains mineral life, something that contains elemental life, such as an oil or a tincture blend. And that's exactly what the gate of the array is like, that's what this is. This is a spell totem. You're stacking totems. You're bringing these things together so that, you're giving it that density that allows you to connect with the dead, to connect with the other world, and to connect with spirits in a higher, more elevated way. So that way you don't have to worry about, what am I doing? Is it going to work? You know exactly what it's doing because you've put all of the ingredients together. You've constructed it in such a way where success is pretty much guaranteed. So all you have to do is put this down, make a prayer of offering, bring it the spirit, or bring it into the space depending on where it is you're doing the work. So today is all about construction of a gateway. So I've given you the ritual ingredients. I want to see what you guys pull together. I want to see what you guys can create as far as your next steps of creating a gateway through which you can pull dead through, or you can pull the spirits through, or creating a tunnel in which you have the means by which to do so. So it's nice, simple actions. Like this took me a few hours to set up last night so that I could have everything ready to go for today, you know? And then what we're going to talk about tomorrow is the different letters and the different ingredients that go behind the sacred letters, so that way when you burn the incense of different spirits, you're actually giving them a place and you're giving them a body through which the smoke can interact, so that the way the smoke billows up, so that the way that the smoke moves around your space, you can actually see the light space inside the smoke. You can actually see the energies of the spirits. Like doing the Samhain ritual the other day, the orbs came down and entered into the circle. Like there was no hallucination. That was, it manifested. There were other psychics in the group that also had seen it. Like that, this shit is not a game, guys. Like this stuff is serious, and it works great when you're trying to help people connect to their loved ones, when you're helping people with the gateways of power. And you can use it for self-discovery. You can use this stuff for exorcism. You can use this stuff for conjurations. You can use this stuff for spell totem animation, so that you grant temporary life to the spells or to the spirits as they are meant to serve you or your clients or your customers or your friends or whatever it is that you have a need for. But these things are really potent when you start stacking them together, and you can create these ceremony spaces that are able to be traveling. So you can take them with you. You can keep them in a bag that you can take to a client's house if you have to. So you've constructed not only tools, you've got the ingredients already prepared so that you have a stable gateway. You have that connection to the land already. You have sat by the graveside and you have understood what those spirits are, what the sadness and the sorrow and the mourning feelings are. So as you make the call, like the go-ins do, when you're wailing, when you're in those intangible words, right? When you just let the sound come through of your calls, that's that next step. But how you structure that sound depends on what energy you're going to pull from. And that's all about tomorrow's conversation. So we'll get into the different hard sounds, soft sounds, things like that tomorrow. But I just want to leave you with this today, and I hope that you have fun on building out your gateways. And I would love to see you go live in the group, and I would love to see what's going on as far as your application of this kind of methodology. And if you've got any questions about it, please comment below. Comment and, get engaged. And I will chat with you later, my friends. Stay safe until then.